You know, it's exciting being governor. It's exciting on a day like today. There's tough parts to the job, but whenever I start out today and I go to Conway High School, as part of my computer science tour through the high schools of Arkansas. We've already hit 6 high schools. We'll be hitting over 10 before it's over with. I was in Conway, then I was in Mayflower. I'll be going down to Arkadelphia later today for another high school. I'll be up in Jonesboro and Paragould. We've already been up in northwest Arkansas to a number of schools, so really hitting a lot of schools around Arkansas on the computer science tour through our high schools. And the reason for this is that, as I tell the students, we're providing a new option that not everybody in America has. And that new option is that you will be able to take computer science in every high school in Arkansas next year. Now, it's only offered in 1 out of 10 high schools in America. That's why I was interviewed by Wired magazine and asked the question to me, Governor, why is Arkansas leading in the computer science comprehensive program across the nation? And who cares what my answer is? I got asked the question. And the fact is, we are leading the nation because it is offered in every high school. We have real money that's put behind it, and we're promoting it. We've got a task force of industry leaders as well as educators that's pushing that effort. So we are leading in that, but I tell the students that it's a choice, and it cannot be successful unless a number of them make the choice, yes, we want to take that. So it's fun going around promoting that, and it actually reflects back on not the last time I spoke to the Political Animals Club, but the previous occasion when I really launched this campaign for governor. I was meeting, it was at the Little Rock Club. We met, and I announced that I wanted to champion the initiative of computer coding, and I was greeted with enormous amount of skepticism among the audience. But we won the campaign on that. We implemented that. I want to compliment the legislators and the great work that they did during the session. We accomplished a great deal in a very short amount of time, and really every objective and desire that I had for the session was fulfilled except for one. And that was I wanted to get through the session without any drama whatsoever. And I almost made it, but not quite at the end. But we survived that, and of course that's not unusual to have a little drama, but that was maybe more than usual. But I think we handled it the right way, and I compliment the legislature. But it's important to note promises kept. It's important for our young people to see that a candidate running for office, one, has ideas, secondly, has a vision for this state, and then when you get elected, you actually do what you talk about doing. And so in the session, we passed the middle class tax cut that was very visible during the campaign for those making between $20,000 and $75,000, the largest income tax rate reduction in the history of this state. Computer science in every high school. We reformed our workforce education delivery system. We created a jobs agenda. We provided even a small thing that some of you might disagree with, but I talked about it during the campaign, and that is if you're a small school and you're performing academically and you're financially sound, you ought to have an appeal process before you're automatically closed down. We promised a review of our Common Core curriculum, not to end it, but to review it, and we have that process set in place. We took on another incredible challenge for our state, which is the advocacy for a $100 million prison. We looked at that and said, surely we can do something different. And so we had our director of prisons come back with different recommendations. We ultimately resolved on a $50 million prison expansion to relieve the overcrowding, to increase safety on our streets, but combine that with a $12 to $14 million initiative for alternative sentencing on the front end and a more effective parole system on the tail end. I'll talk more about that, but we accomplished that. the private option extension through 2016 with a task force to review the future of health care delivery in Arkansas and Medicaid reform. That was promised, it was done. We balanced the budget and there was no reduction in education funding. Those are just 10 items that we did during the legislative session that I campaigned on. And again, I compliment the legislative body for their great work in implementing those initiatives. As governor, I only offered one veto. I vetoed one bill during the entire session, and it was sustained. And so I like the record that we were able to achieve, but you look back and say, well, that's great, now what? Well, there's much more to do. And I was clear in my focus. And sometimes people say, well, do you really need that many task forces? And I could ask, how many of you are on a task force in this audience? Everybody who's not on a task force get to be put on the last task force, which is to review how many task forces we have in Arkansas. But seriously, when it comes to my major initiatives, I'm clear. We wanted to have a more competitive tax system in Arkansas. I wanted to upgrade STEM education in this state and computer science at every high school. We needed to reform our job skill education. Clear on all of these points. We accomplished those with clarity, and we did it in an 81-day session. But there are other issues that we have not reached a consensus on in this state. And I believe that one of the responsibilities of the governor is to bring people together of different viewpoints and say, how can we work together? How can we arrive at a consensus so that we can move the state forward? One of those is on our highway funding. And if you remember, there was a bill that got some momentum during the session that would have a different funding, part of it from general revenues into improving the funding for our highways in Arkansas, and that funding is much needed. But we had not brought in higher education into the discussion process. We had not built a sufficient consensus for it, and we had not planned for that in the balanced budget that we passed. And so I said we need to wait on that, but we will form a task force. Higher education will be represented. We'll have our economic developers. We'll have our highway folks in there, and we will hammer out a solution for the future and a recommendation to bring back to the legislature. I think that's the right approach. There's other initiatives that we need to follow through with in terms of job skill education. We have a number of task forces that bring industry into play, that help them to guide the direction that we want to go in our job skill training in Arkansas to make sure that we match a skill training with a job at the end. And so those are some of the things that we still have to do. Those are some task forces that will help us to implement those things. But there's a couple other things that are popping up, and I wanted to make an announcement today after speaking with Speaker Gillum and President Dismang. And by the way, Speaker Gillum, you and your White County Mafia has done a great job for the state of Arkansas. I once bragged on President Dismang and Speaker Gillum for the White County Mafia and the great job that they're doing, and the Chief Justice came up afterward and said, well, how about me? Don't I count? I'm from White County. And I said, well, I have a problem calling you a White County boy, and I have a problem calling you part of the Mafia. But incredible talent, incredible leadership that you have provided. And I've spoken with both of them about a special session that is needed. And today I am announcing that we will call, at my call, a special session of the General Assembly for May 26th. It'll hopefully be a short session, but it is to help us be in position to create hundreds of jobs in South Arkansas with the leadership of Lockheed Martin, one of our aero defense contractors in Calhoun County. And so the purpose of this session will be to consider an Amendment 82 super project. Now, I want to explain this a little bit to you, that we've known about this project for some time, but because of the sensitivity of the federal contracting system, we did not make the announcement. We were not able to do it during the regular session. And so we had to wait until the competition and the bids were in. And now that the bids are in and being considered, we need to follow up with a special session to approve the Amendment 82 support for the project in the Highland Industrial Park. What's exciting about this is two things. One, it will create over 500 jobs, good paying jobs in South Arkansas. Secondly, it will be the first time in Arkansas that we will have a vehicle assembly point. And the vehicle that will be assembled under this project will be of military significance, the Joint Readiness Training Vehicle for the United States Army and Marine Corps. Over 55,000 of those vehicles will be anticipated to be manufactured, and if Lockheed Martin wins the contract, then that mission of national security will take place in the state of Arkansas on one of our projects that we can support. I would emphasize that this is what we call a contingent liability I'm asking them to approve, because we need to approve this Amendment 82 project so that Lockheed Martin's bid can be properly considered in a competitive environment. There's not any guarantee the Department of Defense will award that contract. We are hopeful that they will, but it is the right step for Arkansas, it's the right step for our nation, and I hope we win that contract for this state and for our nation. And so that will be on the agenda, Mr. Speaker. I know you're aware of that, but there may be some other items on the agenda. We will announce those at a later time. But I do hope, and I want to come back to another topic, but it could be related to a couple of items on the special call. And that is what I call efficiency in government. And I have a belief that big things matter, and that's really what we did during the legislative session. We accomplished the big objectives, more competitive tax rates. We accomplished a big objective of enhancing STEM education in Arkansas, setting the parameters for job skill education. But small things matter in government also. One of the best things that I did, even as governor-elect, was to go down and make a surprise visit to the Alexander Youth Facility in Alexander, Arkansas. What that did was to tell all of the workers in protecting and serving our juveniles that as governor, your work is important to me. But it also sent a signal to our contractors that the safety and the policies that guard our youth are important to the state of Arkansas, and we're going to watch it. Little things matter still. And it's little things that don't meet the headlines of the papers, but it's little things like efficiencies. Sending a signal to my agency directors, some of whom are in this room, that I'm going to hold you accountable. I'm going to ask you, tell me how you've made your agency more efficient. How have you kept up delivery of services to the taxpayers of this state, at the same time doing it more efficient and saving our tax dollars? And we're going to hold them accountable, and those are the little things that we're doing. During this last session, we did, maybe it's a big thing, but I would put it in the category of a small thing that makes a difference, and that is moving the Lottery Commission under the Department of Finance and Administration. It gave us more efficiencies, it gave us more oversight, and it was the right thing to do, and I think it'll be a more efficient operation because of that alignment. It'll also save us money. The Department of Rural Services in Arkansas is one of the most important agencies in my judgment, because it serves rural Arkansas that I identify with, that I come from. but we moved the physical location of the Department of Rural Services into the Arkansas Economic Development Commission offices. Why? Because space was available. And it saved the taxpayers hundreds of thousands of dollars over a period of time. Now, if you save $100,000 in 1 year, guess what? That means you save $1 million in 10 years. And pretty soon you're talking about real money. And whether it's Sam Walton or anyone in business, you understand that small things matter, and if you pay attention to the small details, then you'll have a more efficient operation and you'll serve the taxpayers more. And so whether it is extension of broadband to our rural schools, or whether it is combination of agencies to be more efficient, we're going to work with the legislature and their leadership to accomplish these things. And I see our auditor over here, and I know she's doing that in her office. Andrew, you ought to be congratulated for that. But that's what is expected, and we're going to continue to work and to focus on those matters. Finally, and maybe not quite finally, as some preachers said, finally really doesn't mean I'm coming to an end. But the next item, I was making a speech to the Manufacturing Summit in North Little Rock. And after I talked about our goals in manufacturing, bringing manufacturing back to Arkansas, I turned it open for questions, and someone popped up. And the first question was, Governor, tell me what you're doing to encouraging the hiring of ex-offenders in Arkansas. I didn't expect that question, but it was a question that was right for the time, and it also fits really in what we tried to accomplish during the legislative session. And it reflects the compassion of the people of Arkansas that I want to call upon. It's not all about what government can do. It is about what we, in partnership with the private sector and the faith-based organizations, can do together. And so as this gentleman asked that question to me, I was able to talk about, historically in Arkansas, whether you served 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, or more in prison, you would leave all with two things: $100 and a bus ticket. And maybe they'd say, good luck. What is the chance of success? What is the chance that you're not going to return to prison? And so for the first time, we not only expanded prison beds, but we also created 500 reentry beds that we're implementing so that we can not just give them a bus ticket and $100, but we can give them transitional housing. We can provide help in getting a driver's license or maybe job training, so that the ex-offenders can actually have a better chance of getting employed and not returning to prison. And some of them, many of them, actually want to get back to a normal life and to contribute to society, and they deserve and ought to have a second chance. And so there's compassion there. And as I ask the audience then, and I can ask you this question, we have employers in this room, and I'll ask this rhetorically. But as you get an application, there is usually a block in that application. Have you ever been convicted of a felony? Or it might say, have you ever been convicted of a felony in the last 5 years? And somebody honestly checks that box, even though they really want a job. Are they then excluded from the interview process? Are they nixed totally? Or do they have an opportunity to make their case to be considered? Now, there's always reasons not to. If you're a banker, you might not want to hire somebody who is convicted of embezzlement as a bank teller. But there's other occupations. They should not be automatically disqualified. The government does not mandate that, but as governor, I'm asking the private sector and our faith-based organizations to join us in making sure ex-offenders have an opportunity for a fresh start. That, to me, is the compassion of Arkansas. Today I was in Mayflower, which illustrates the compassion of our state as well, whenever so many people helped during that tornado that went through there in Valonia. And Then I'm going to be going down later today, regretfully, after I'm at Arkadelphia High School. I'll be going out down by Nashville, where we lost 2 lives last night because of the storms. I'll be touring that and seeing what more can be done and to what extent we should declare that a disaster. But one thing I have confidence in as governor, that the compassion of Arkansas will reach out to anyone who is in difficult circumstances. Now, I do want to get to the finally part of my speech, and that is to talk about something else that's special in Arkansas, but that is important for our body politic, and that is civility. And that is civility. And I think that's one of the things, Rex, that this body promotes, is that Republican or Democrat, independent, whatever your background, let's fight hard, let's work hard in the election, and then let's come together, let's have civil discourse, work together for the good of the state of Arkansas. And one of the pleasant surprises is the number of people, Democrats, Republicans, and independents, that when the campaign was over, they simply wanted the governor of Arkansas to succeed. And they pulled together. Now, there's going to be differences, and we're not always going to agree, but in their hearts, you want the governor to succeed. And that's not true in Washington, D.C., but it is true in the state of Arkansas. And I hope that we can always encourage that civility. Paul Vincent, former baseball commissioner, tells this story and illustrates, from his standpoint, the importance of civility in sports and the uniqueness of baseball, and I happen to be a baseball fan. And he tells a story that, the observation, I should say, that if you watch baseball, you see day in and day out on every game a pop fly that will be going foul. And so when it's a foul pop fly, the catcher, what does he do? He flips off his mask and he runs to catch the ball. It goes out of bounds. He misses it or he catches it. But he flips off his mask, and when he concludes, he heads back to get his dusty mask. 90 times out of 100, you will see the opposing batter pick up the mask and hand it to the catcher. That is the civility and traditions of baseball. No rules, no mandates, but it's tradition based upon civility. Isn't that a great story? And is that not what we want in our politics and in our government and our public service? Thank you for what you contribute to the state of Arkansas.